It's a pretty universally accepted idea that addiction is bad for someone. It could hurt a person financially, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and temporally, I guess. Thankfully, the field of psychology has been hard at work trying to address this villain that plagues so many lives. I'm not a psychology guy, however. I'm in the philosophy department. But there's no harm in working together to take down such a colossus, is there? Thankfully, there's some pretty relevant passages from one of these philosophical texts, which addresses the pain of addiction as well as offers a possible form of relief. This text is the Confessions of Saint Augustine, and it gives us a case study into the relationship between addiction and religious faith. Hello and welcome to Philosophy Tunes, recording this while riding the Splash Mountain ride at Disney World, so apologies in advance if any water splashes onto the microphone. Now again, full disclosure, I'm not a psychology guy. I barely made it out of my AP psychology class. I mean, the most I could say is that I've gotten along with a lot of psych majors. I feel like the philosophy majors and the psych majors just sorta gravitate to each other. But yeah, not a psych guy, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. So why the Confessions of Saint Augustine when talking about addiction? The Maria Bolding translation in specific, link in the description. Well again, I'm not qualified to officially diagnose Augustine with addiction like some pseudo-psychology YouTuber, but as you read the text, you start to note how some of the language sounds almost exactly like that of someone who's dealing with addiction. I might know myself because I've dealt with addiction and have friends who've dealt with it as well. Here, just take a listen to this quote and tell me what you think. The truth is that disordered lust springs from a perverted will. When lust is pandered to, a habit is formed. When habit is not checked, it hardens into compulsion. These were like interlinking rings, forming what I have described as a chain, and my harsh servitude used it to keep me under duress. If you couldn't pick it up yet, the thing that Augustine is infatuated with is sex. And in the book, it's not some 50 Shades of Grey tell-all about his sex life, but rather, we get a look into his mind and see that he really is obsessed with the pleasures of the flesh, as he calls it. So hopefully this quote shows that we might have a case study in addiction here. But we're also kinda jumping the gun and not defining what addiction is. I think the best thing I found were these 11 criteria for a substance abuse disorder. And while sex isn't really a substance, it could be insightful to try to apply what we have here to Augustine. But again, I just want to stress this, don't take this random YouTuber super seriously, we're just experimenting a bit here. So the book doesn't give us enough information for number 1, but I think number 2 is clearly met. He believes what he's doing is wrong and wants to change. Here's a quote from him addressing a friend who wants to dissuade him from sex to back that up. I was shackled by weakness of the flesh, and was dragging along with me a chain forged of deadly sweetness. Fearing to be freed from it and beating away his words of sound advice as though from a touchy wound. For that advice was a hand that might have set me free. Moving on, we don't really have enough information for 3, but 4 I feel can also be met by that last quote. 5 is also a maybe, but 6 can be met. His relationship with God, his friends, his mother, and even a lover are disrupted. Meanwhile, my sins were multiplying. For the woman with whom I had been cohabitating was ripped from my side, being regarded as an obstacle to my marriage. For I was no lover of marriage, but the slave of lust. So I got myself another woman, in no sense a wife, that my soul's malady might be sustained in its pristine vigor, or even aggravated, as it was conducted under the escort of inveterate custom into the realm of matrimony. For the rest of the criteria, I don't think we have enough info to say one way or the other, but hopefully these quotes have shown that there's some potential here. So what happens now? Well, Augustine is full of this shame and guilt as a result, and has a bit of a moment in a garden. And here we find some further quotes that hint at an addiction and are to me the most powerful, relatable signs of an obsession. The frivolity of frivolous aims, the futility of futile pursuits, these things that had been my cronies of long standing, still held me back, plucking softly at my garment of flesh and murmuring in my ear, "Do you mean to get rid of us? Shall we never be your companions again after that moment? Never again? From that time onward, so-and-so will be forbidden to you, all your life long." He goes on to obsess over what is meant by this so-and-so, almost like these addictive thoughts were teasing him with purposeful ambiguity to make him obsess over them again. And what was it that they were reminding me of by those words? So-and-so. Oh my God, what were they bringing to my mind? May your mercy banish such memories far from me. What foul deeds were they not hinting at? What disgraceful exploits? Hopefully I was able to give those quotes a dramatic flair. Although they wouldn't let me play Macduff in our elementary school play for Macbeth, so I'm still a bit salty over that. Anyway, what happens next is one of the most famous parts of the book. Augustine is in super despair mode, crying under a fig tree because he wants to live favorably in the eyes of God, but can't break this obsession with sex. However, he hears a voice of a child singing, saying, "Pick it up and read, pick it up and read." So he thinks, maybe this is a call to read the Bible. So he runs and finds one, flips to a random page and reads the first thing he sees, which is Romans 13:13. Not in dissipation and drunkenness, nor in debauchery and lewdness, nor in arguing and jealousy, but put on the Lord Jesus Christ, and make no provisions for the flesh or the gratification of your desires. And the rest is history. I mean, he's a saint, so it's not really hard to see how the rest of the story ends. Through his religious faith, he was able to escape addiction. But, although this is just a case study, how can we think about religious faith in relation to addiction for our own lives? But before we start discussing this, just to lay down some ground rules here, I want to talk about religious faith in general, not specific to Catholicism like in the case of Saint Augustine. Some belief in a higher power will suffice here. Furthermore, we're not just going to rely on religious revelations, like Augustine was so fortunate to experience here. Because you can't just make that stuff happen with a click of a button, it sort of just happens to you. So we gotta get more practical here. So let's do it. Let's go a little off-road here and think about how a religious faith might affect an addiction. The first thing I thought about was this idea of religion providing a 24/7 monitor on your life. Most conceptions of a higher power have the ability to look over you forever and always. It is kinda creepy, I don't know. But if you believe someone is always watching you, could this be a good motivation to not engage in addictive behaviors? We also gotta think about how we believe that higher power would react to us engaging in those behaviors. Like, is your God a forgiving and loving God who would understand your relapses, but encourage you to keep trying? Or is your God an angry God who would get super pissed when you slip up? Is fear of this angry God good motivation, or is the more forgiving God gonna be a better option? I want to next mention some of the ideas of faith prevalent in Alcoholics Anonymous and other anonymous groups. Not these anonymous, but these anonymous. There are a lot of references to a higher power in these groups and even specify God in some instances. So I talked to an anonymous member of one of these anonymous groups, anonymously, and they said that it's helpful to include this higher power as a reminder that you can't fight the addiction alone, but you also don't have to because of the presence of that higher power. What do you guys think about that? I mean, dealing with any problem alone is much harder than dealing with it alongside someone. It makes me think about getting in trouble as a kid and going to the principal's office and having some relief that you weren't the only kid sent there. I don't know, stupid example. And then one final thing I should mention is community. With religious belief usually comes gatherings and friends and religious mentors, and although you know there's probably not going to be some sermon on hardcore drug use or whatever, I think a healthy social life might be helpful in a fight against whatever you're going through. These are just some random thoughts by a non-expert, so let me know what you think in the comments below. Obviously, the world of psychology is going to be better equipped to deal with stuff like this, but if this video is able to resonate with even one person, then that's good. You know what to do if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe, like, hit the bell, and share. And with that, I wish you all a beautiful rest of your day.